Hello and welcome to Suspended Fanimation. I'm your host, Dennis Bathalkas, and tonight is Counterpart Season 2, Episode 6, Twin Cities. And wow, we finally got an explanation of what happened for the experiment. Wow, that's all I can say. This one is written and directed by, excuse me, the showrunner, the creator of the show, Justin Marks. So, of course, it's packed full of stuff. I mean, just packed full of stuff. So, before I get started here, I'm going to say spoiler alert. I am going to spoil the shit out of the show. If you haven't seen it yet, go and watch it. It's on Starz, the app. I believe it's on their website too at this point. It dropped at 9 p.m. Excuse me, it dropped at midnight Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. West Coast time last night. So it's up and out there. And we've been waiting for that after last week's hiatus, which I guess was the mid-season break, something like that. So, yeah, wow. Yeah, Pen Farm Girl, there was a lot of answered questions in this episode. And a lot of things confirmed too. I guess I was right in that last that last recap that I did. Some of my theories, and I was like, "Holy shit! I'm actually right about some stuff. It's amazing." So yeah, so we start off with Yannick being given a mini camera by the CIA, and this is in East Berlin in 1987. He's supposed to take some pictures. He's got 5 rolls of film and a little mini camera, but if he's caught with it, he's basically screwed at this point. And he's doing this in order to save his son and his family. His son's basically a subversive, and he has 24 hours to get the CIA the pics, and they can get his family out of East Berlin and to the west. So Yannick comes home to his son, daughter, and wife, and he talks to his wife briefly about they're going to be going soon. She asks him, if he met, and he says we're going to be going soon. He doesn't say when. He doesn't give a time frame. And as they're sitting down to dinner, his son keeps making these anti-communist comments, and his father's like, don't say those kind of things because it's bad. You don't want to say bad things about the comrades. And his son just says, you wouldn't be able to wipe your ass unless the party told you how to do it, and gets up and walks away. And of course, the wife is pissed off at him, and she leaves the table too. And she's pissed off at her son, goes to follow him. And then we get to see this little interaction between Mira and her father. She's handing him some jam, and she goes to hand it to him, and then pulls back and hands it to him. So they have a little playful relationship. And we get to see how they interacted a little bit. And again, this is all little bits and pieces in the storytelling, which actually works. This is what you do when you have a good director and a good writer for a show. That's all I'm going to say about this stuff. Yeah. So Yannick enters the building that we notice is interchange, but this is 1987 interchange. So there's no guards outside, no walls, nothing like that. It's just this big open courtyard that he's walking into. And he works in the basement. So he goes down there and he gives one of the assistants. We see all these assistants down there, and he gives one of them a sheet of notes, and she goes, "That's going to take me all day to do this." And he goes, "Well, get to it," kind of thing. So we see the clock jump forward to 5 o'clock. Everyone's jumping out the door. And Yannick stays behind a little bit and decides to take some pictures because everyone's out now. So he's taking pictures, and he runs the computer, which is the light source synchrotron, and starts running an experiment on there. And as he's doing that, he takes off back upstairs to go and take pictures of all the booklets of everything. And he's not there, of course, because when the computer starts to glitch and asking for an abort code because there's something very bad that's about to happen. And we see the computer literally start to melt. And the screen, it was kind of cool because we saw the green lettering melting along with it. Instead of the screen just going blank and then melting, it melted as it was still working, which is really weird. Very, very weird thing. A fatal error code red, exactly, Movie Finobi. Which you never want a fatal error code red because, as opposed to a fatal error code magenta. That's a little bit different. So Yeah, and that is the start of the divide, Viking bitch. Exactly. That is where we're going to have the divide of these two worlds. Everything starts shaking. Yannick finally looks up from the pictures that he's taking and sees that all hell's breaking loose. And there's the alarms start going off as well. And once it stops shaking, he grabs a flashlight to go investigate what the hell happened. And he walks down the stairs, goes down into what was now the crossing that we know of. And he's asking, is anyone there? Because he can hear something. And he sees rats, of course, too. And he sees his other and he had actually dropped the flashlight at one point. He's walking down the stairs and he went to go retrieve it. And when he picks it up and his other picks it up and they both shine their flashlights on each other at the same time. And yeah, they both kind of freak out and go running back up the stairs in their opposite directions. And they both grab an axe. So they come back down to go and talk to each other. And excuse me, actually, before we do that, we see Mira taking Yannick to a safe house. And it's a safe house that the safe house is actually a place they used to go to when she was a child. And he says, oh, this is where I used to take you as a child. She goes, you didn't take me. You took my other. And this isn't the place we used to go to. It was your world. You took her to. So she's very, about that. You are not my father. You are the other, and we'll find out about what happened there, why she is doing this. And we know that he's the alpha in the prime world, and she, of course, is prime at this point. And he blames himself for what she's become at this point because he sees all the guns on the wall, and he goes, I blame myself, for what's happened. I made you this way. And she goes, I'm not your experiment. She really is very pissed off about him thinking of her as an experiment, and he's not really. He's just blaming himself for everything that's happened. And we'll get into that a little bit more too here. So she says, we did find your journals. And he goes, where'd you find those? She goes, oh, in your world. It was very easy to get. And your words have inspired an army, is what she says. And the experiment must end. But we'll talk about this later. You need to get some rest now, is what she tells him. So we go back to 1987, where Yannick has grabbed an axe and his other have grabbed an axe. They meet each other down below and they're talking, and they're arguing about who created who at one point. And finally, one of the others, one of them says, would you like to come up in my world and we can just talk about this? It's like, okay. So they come up there, they sit down, and they're looking at each other. And he says, what am I thinking right now? And he says, oh, my eyes are too close together and my nose is too big. And it's my father's nose. He goes, precisely. That's we're exact mirrors. We're we're exactly the same, essentially. And they start talking about what went wrong with the experiment as well. In scientific terms, they're talking about the physics of it and how they need to actually, take a look into it and see what's happening. And they also realize at this point that leaving to the east is no longer possible. They can't do this and leave this crossing to a new world in the hands of government or someone else to find. There's just no way they can do it. So they put those plans on hold, and he goes and tells the CIA handler, and the CIA handler is pretty pissed off and says, you know how hard it is to get this thing set up? He goes, you have 72 hours. After 72 hours, the car is gone. Well, it'll never happen again. And he goes, and if your comrades get a hold of you, it's going to be really, really bad. Yeah. So Yannick closes down the cyclotron area and gives everyone furloughs so that he can, repair it, if you will. And then he starts working with his other to investigate each other and their worlds to see if there are any differences. They're measuring everything down to the minute details, and they're realizing they're exact duplicates of each other. They go into each other's worlds and realize, yes, they're exact duplicates. And each of them buys a cassette tape in their other, in the other worlds and come back. It's a gift for Mira. Mira is really into music. And the Prime version decides that he's not going to give his daughter the cassette tape. That's going to be the control. So he smashes his cassette tape and says, you give your daughter her gift, and that'll be where our differences are at this point. We'll see what happens. And, yes, he also, that's the other thing with Obi-Wan too, is his wife is getting mad because he keeps blowing off the escape plan and not telling her when they're going to leave. So she's getting more and more upset because she wants to get the hell out of there. She knows her son is doing some really stupid stuff at this point. So since their worlds are identical, they try this experiment, and we see the split world, which was actually a very cool scene. We have a top and a bottom world where we see Mira getting the gift in one world and not in the other, and love given in one world, not in the other. And it's a very weird thing as we see this. And then we have Yannick waking up in the present and talking about, in the safe house with Mira just sitting there in the chair watching him, which is very odd. And he says, "How long have I been asleep?" She says, "Oh, a couple of hours." And this is when she opens up the management case and he says, "What's that?" She goes, "This is how your others talk to you, talk to each other after what you did. This is how they talk to each other now." He goes, "They don't meet anymore. They're hermits, and they talk to themselves, as they say." So I thought that was kind of interesting how, it's basically, we hear the word echo a lot in this story. And this is what this is, an echo chamber. They are not listening to anything from the outside. They're only listening to themselves. And in some cases, quite literally, because they're talking to their others. So you're listening to yourself. It's an echo chamber. And so a lot of dual meanings on this. And I have to commend Justin Marks on that. It was very neat that he did that. And she tells them that she needs them all to meet management, and that the experiment needs to end at this point. So we go back to 1987, and Yannick's wife keeps questioning about when they're going to leave. And he actually has spotted two men sitting outside their apartment with a camera, and he knows they're being watched at this point. And she's questioning him outside, and he's trying to go, "You know what? It's soon. Don't worry about it. Soon. I don't want to have this conversation here later." And then he gets pissed off at her, and he says, "I finally found a purpose in life, and now you're pissed off about this." And he kind of blames her, which is kind of a weird thing. And then he takes off. Yeah. Movie Finobi says marital rift, but also a part of the divergence of the universe is small changes impact greatly. Yeah. It's cause and effect. It's basically an outside influence affecting your choices. So the experiment was tainted from the beginning, if you really will, about this, because it had an outside influence. So it wasn't a pure experiment in the truest sense of the term, if you want to get into the scientific aspects of it. And the reason for that being is that you have these two worlds that are happening. That is your taint right there. So kind of a weird thing. So Yannick brings in 4 other scientists to show them what's going on, as does his other. And they bring in the exact same scientists, and they all have their own different roles to play. One's in economics, one's biology, human behavior, all that kind of stuff. And they meet each other, and they decide to set up ground rules. So one of the first ground rules, and this was something that Yannick put into place, the Yannicks did, they said, "No interfering with your echoes' lives." Okay, so remember that. No interfering with your echoes' lives. That was the main rule right there. And they decide to work together. And so we have a montage, an 80s montage, including 80s music of them working together and looking at biology and plants and all kinds of stuff. And they're putting up news reports and everything like that. And we get to Yannick's family being woken up in the middle of the night by the secret police. The secret police are going to take away Reiner, because Reiner has been photographed a couple of days ago passing out pamphlets, subversive pamphlets at the university. And yes, Viking Bitch, they did all start off as friends. So, yes, Echo Prison. So they come by to arrest Reiner for passing out the subversive pamphlets. Mira is in her room. So we're seeing the alpha side at this point. Mira is in her room listening to the music that her father gave her. She's got the headphones on. She's not hearing any of this, any of the yelling and all that. Reiner is manhandled by one of the secret policemen, actually pushed to the ground. He's got his knee on top of him. And we see Reiner start actually getting, having a seizure, having an epileptic fit, because he has epilepsy. He was taking medication for it. and no one's noticing that he is foaming at the mouth and just kind of going off. And then Mira in her room hears her father yell out, and she finally takes off the headphones and comes out and sees her brother sitting there on the floor in front of her, starting to, seize. And she yells out, "Mom, take a look at Reiner." And they see him, and they're trying to revive him, of course. And they have the secret police call an ambulance because at this point he's seizing pretty bad. It fades out, and we see Yannick's wife sitting on the edge of her bed, and he goes to go over to her, grab her hand, and she pulls her hand away from him, and she blames him. She goes, "We would have been in the West by now if it wasn't for you." She goes, "You murdered our son." So there we go. There's your other big divergence right there, is their son has died, because we come back to their workplace with all the others coming in, and Yannick's Yannick Alpha is dragging himself in a bit, and they're asking what's wrong. And Yannick Prime comes in from the crossing and says, "Oh, they came for you too." They go, "That's okay. I'm going to call Chairman so-and-so and get him released." And he says, "Your son's still alive?" is what Alpha asks. And he goes, "Yes." And it was because Mira had the headset on with the cassette tape. She didn't hear them screaming outside, so she didn't come out and didn't see her brother seizing in time. Whereas in the Prime universe, she did. So there is your major divergence. Yes. And yeah, you're right, Phenobi. It does have strong echoes of the two Howards. It's basically a child dying. Or a child not being born. So yeah. And so everything starts spiraling down for Alpha after this. His wife, of course, he's now in a loveless marriage because she blames him for murdering their son. His daughter won't talk to him. And in the meantime, in Prime's universe, everything's still fine because Reiner was released and he's doing okay. He's given up hanging out with the socialists and all that kind of stuff. So he's on the straight and narrow at this point. And at one point, Yannick Prime suggests that your son's not dead. You can come and share my son. Basically, he's our son, is what he thinks. He, in a true communist way, I guess you could say, he's like, everything mine is yours and everything yours is mine, kind of thing. And very, very weird at that point. And Yannick Alpha is kind of pissed about that. He doesn't want to have that because he wants his son, the one that he fathered. And we see two TVs running at the same time. They're both watching a soccer match, and the soccer matches are off. If you notice, the soccer matches are off by a little bit in each world. So already the differences have started in both worlds, and they're just getting worse and worse. And we see that the wall falls at the same time in East Berlin, East and West Berlin. And this is why walls are never a good idea, because, they always fall. And this is 1989 at this point. And so while the others are searching a forgotten fourth floor, so this is where we get the emergence of the fourth floor, we see Yannick Alpha take Prime's jacket and walk over into the Prime life. And they're getting ready to sit down to dinner. And he sees his son, gives his son a big hug, and then sits down and has dinner with them. And then he says it all kind of spiraled out from there. Yeah. So the others at this point, while he's in the Prime world, are developing a plan to expand the study by hiring other people, but keeping them all in the dark about the true nature of what the experiment is. And by separating it out in different floors. That's why you have the fourth floor, the third floor, all this kind of stuff. And it is, exactly, Mood Funobi. That was, I believe, the 90s game that Quail was at. But I thought Quail had been taken at that point, but no, he wasn't. He had been taken afterwards. So Stanley Tweedle says the broadcast of the wall falling was different. That doesn't mean the wall didn't fall. They were both different. Both broadcasts were different at this point. So they were off by just little bits, but they were both the both things were happening at the same time. But the soccer match was different. The soccer match was having a little bit of a difference going on there. So that's what they were taking a look at. So the others, again, decide to develop the plan to split out all the floors. And Yannick Alpha, of course, has dinner with the Prime family. So in 1990, Interchange, which is what it's been dubbed now because one of them was talking about the interchange, is born, and it expands. And Yannick Alpha keeps sneaking into the Prime universe, and he goes back over there and screws Yannick's Prime wife. And that's where he says everything kind of changed, and he starts going over there daily at this point because he leaves from his cold prison, as he says, to go over into the loving light. And yeah, it's just, he says it was very easy at that point. And what he didn't realize was that if he was doing this, that it was actually happening on the other end as well. That his that Prime was actually going over to the Alpha and living in his life. Because, of course, if he had the thought, the other had the thought as well. So, man, yeah. So Alpha observes at one point the rats in the crossing all milling about, and they're eating each other. They're fighting and eating each other, and he starts having an inkling that something is wrong here at this point. He's like, holy crap, it's pretty bad. But he hasn't gotten the full gist of anything as of yet. So he ends up talking to one of his scientist buddies at the pub, and he's discussing how, our biology has probably diverged at this point. So is our immunology. He goes, that means they're susceptible to other viruses that we aren't. He goes, is there some way we can come up with something as an insurance policy, just in case something goes bad? He goes, I can see at some point that, both worlds have finite resources. He goes, if one world was supposed to had something bad happen to them, they would look to the other world to try and, help them out, kind of thing. We need to, have a contingency plan against this. That's why I want to do a biological weapon. And his other is like, his friend says, well, what the hell are you talking about, man? And he goes, we can't do that. And he goes, you know what? If we're thinking about this and having this conversation, what do you think they're doing over on the other side? Yeah, never to be used. Exactly, Pen Farm Girl. It's never to be used. It's just to be held just in case. Exactly. So it's like, wow. All right. Sorry, I just lost my place there. And so Yannick Alpha at one point ends up following Prime home to talk to him. And we find out that Mira and basically his son, daughter, and wife are out for the night. They all have different things they're doing. And he asks to talk to Prime. And he says, I like your place. And Prime's like, yeah, okay. And they're having drinks. And Prime is trying to tell him, ever since your son died, you've been taking more and more aggressive stances. You are subscumming to your basic instincts. And this pisses off Alpha, saying that, what do you think you are, superior to me? And he's like, no. He's trying to diffuse the situation at this point. And Prime's like, we can share our worlds. He goes, I offered my wife to you, is what he said. But you refused it. But then you came in, and then he shows him the button that he left behind and says, yeah, but you took it anyway, kind of thing. So I've been over in your world consoling the family that you've been neglecting because they're my flesh and blood as well. And this pisses him off even more. And Alpha pushes Prime, knocks him off his feet, and he hits his head against the table and is bleeding. And they have a little bit of a fight. Prime goes down, and then Alpha just loses. He goes ape shit and starts beating him to death with the phone. At this point, Mira walks in and sees him over the top of her dead father's body with the doppelganger splatter with blood, and starts screaming for help because she doesn't know who the hell this guy is, even though he looks like her father. Yeah. And so he runs off back to the Alpha world and runs straight into his friend who's waiting there for him and sees him all covered in blood and asks him what the hell happened. and he's sequestered in a room. They said, yeah, they found Prime's body. The cops have found him. Mira knows everything. She's been telling them, everything that's happened. And basically, you're screwed. And so Yannick says, he tells him what happened, that he went over there and he broke the first rule, that they weren't supposed to interfere with their Echo's lives, and he did. And they're pissed at him at this point. And they're like, well, there's only one thing we can do. They hand him his glasses, they bring him outside, and they say, in order to keep the crossing open, we're giving you to them, and you're going to spend your life in prison over there. That's the only way we can, that we've dealt with this. And Yannick is screaming at them that the experiment has failed and that one will eventually destroy the other. And he goes, it's inevitable. And they won't listen to him, of course. He says, we need to close the passage, and that's it. He gets taken away. So, yeah, it's, he finally realizes what the hell's going on there at this point, that one is always destined to destroy the other just because they are the same. And you can't have, it's positive and negative ions, basically, if you will. They get together and destroy each other, or the positive and negative, if you will. And that's what it's all about. Oh, man. So their solution is, once they take him over there, they decide to tell both families that Yannick ran off to another country. Well, of course, the one Yannick is dead. So they're telling Mira, who saw his doppelganger, that she's crazy. And that because of all what she witnessed, she, saw something else. And the other family, they're telling him that, Yannick had taken off to another country. So both sides begin, of course, more and more to distrust each other. The virus is made. It's the Munchen virus. And the Munchen virus is a real thing. Excuse me. And we see that it actually gets released at one point or another. And Mira, with her voiceover, says, who knows if it was actually done intentionally or if it was done by accident. But millions died at this point. So we know that millions of people died from this virus that was released. Not just a few people, but millions. And that's the reason why everything is kind of pristine over on the Prime side, is because the less people you have, the less strain you have on the environment. The environment kind of bounces back a little bit more. Yeah, so at this time, both sides don't trust each other, and they develop a way to communicate without being in the same room. And that's where the cases are involved. And we see the last meeting is up on the 4th floor, where they pick up their cases and they walk out. And one of the others tries to shake hands with his other, and he won't accept it. Then they're done at this point. Yeah. So we come back to present time, and Mira says that her father left her 2 broken worlds for her to fix, or that Yannick Alpha left her 2 broken worlds to fix. And Yannick says that she'll never close the crossing. There's no way they're going to do it. There's no way that she's going to get them to agree to do it. And she goes, well, 40 years of, she uses the Berlin Wall as an example. She goes, 40 years of that, and they realize their error, and that happened. So, it can happen. And she says that even though he isn't her father, he grew up in her image, which I thought was interesting. Yeah. And finally, Mira takes the case. She uses the management case, and she calls up management. And she says she'll give both herself and her father up to management if everyone meets to discuss the closing of the passage, or the crossing. The Passage is another Fox series, and The Crossing, I believe, is an ABC series. So, but there we go. And that's the end of it. That's the end of that episode. And damn. Yeah, it is a trap movie for nobody. I'm sure it is. Everything with Mira is a trap. She is 9 steps ahead of everyone else. So, wow. Yeah, Pen Farm Girl, so much has happened. It does feel like they're wrapping it up in case there's no renewal. And Nazanin Banandi, I can never pronounce her last name, the woman who plays Claire on Counterpart, is fighting hard on Twitter. I've been retweeting her tweets as well. She's been trying to get hashtag watch Counterpart, all one word, trending. I'm also trying to get hashtag save Counterpart trending as well. So for those of you out there who want to see a good show continue on way beyond a second season, please watch, sign up for Starz, watch it. You can watch it live. You can watch it on the app. And I know they're looking at the app. Tweet about it, talk about it, do videos about it like what I'm doing right now. And, talk to the Counterpart Writers Room. I believe tonight, Justin Marks said that at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, he is going to be at CP Writers Room. It's all one word. That's on Twitter. And he's going to be talking live in a chat during the live viewing of the episode. So you can ask all your questions there. Go and talk to him. He's going to be doing it from now on. Every night that they're doing the new live premiere, he's actually going to be out there talking with the fans. So I'm going to be out there. I want to take a look and see what he has to say. And hold binge counterparties as well, as Pen Farm Girl says. That was one of Nazanin's ideas. Hold binge counterparties. If you haven't seen Counterpart, definitely give it a shot. It's like Fringe but better. Quite honestly, it's got a lot more spy stuff to it, if you will. And it's just really cool, man. I mean, it's very well acted, very well written, and probably one of the best shows on TV. So Counterparties is what Helen Sotritis says. Nice. Counterparties. Yeah, I love the Counterparties. That's hold binge Counterparties. No, move Finobi. Don't get that trending. Don't want that. Yeah, I know you didn't say it, Helen. I know it was Nazanin who said. And I know Pen Farm Girl had mentioned it as well. So no Future Man tonight. I don't know, Slurmy. I'll see what it looks like tonight for me. It's kind of hard to schedule stuff. I got other stuff going on too. So, but yeah, I will be back tomorrow night with The Passage, the new episode of The Passage, episode 2. Tuesday night is, well, I'm going to have the new schedule up today too. So you can take a look on my website, suspendedfanimation.com. You can take a look on Facebook. I'm going to have that up there as well. I'm also on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram as well. So I'm pretty much everywhere. And yes, I did get a new car, Slurmy Scott. So I will be putting that up. I'm dropping Orville from the schedule. I just can't watch it anymore. It's crappy. It really is. Yeah, I can't do it. I just can't do it anymore. So thank you, Pen Farm Girl. Yeah, right now I have 2 cars going because the lease is ending on one, and I already started one on the other. So yeah. So yeah, that's it. With that said, if you like what you see, subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, or hit the dislike button if you don't like what you see. If you want to see when I'm going to be on next, hit the little bell as well down below there, and you can find out when I'm going to be on next there. You'll also see my schedule, like I said, where you can find it at, and you'll see a subscribe button up here. You're going to see a video button someplace over here of videos taken from my library of videos that fit your best interests of what you watch. Other than that, exactly, Viking Bitch, watch what you love. This show, exactly. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody in the chat. And I will let you go for the day. Other than that, I'll see you tomorrow. And don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Otherwise, your other may come in and take over your life and try and kill you, when you're trying to talk some sense into them.